Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we preview and predict Week 13 of the 2022 CFL season. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the channel, as always, be sure to hit like and subscribe. And with that said, let's get started. So Labor Day weekend is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Arguably the biggest weekend of the CFL regular season schedule on an annual basis, and I am very excited for these matchups. Obviously, the big rivalry matchups with BC being the lone team on bye this week, but we have four really great matchups this weekend, and I cannot wait to get into it in this video. So starting with the first matchup between the Montreal Alouettes and the Ottawa Redblacks from Percival Molson Stadium in Montreal, with the Alouettes favored by 4.5 points here. And I think this game is very consequential for the standings because Ottawa has a chance to make its move in the standings still if they can win this game, because they still have 3 more matchups, including this week against Montreal, and they have a chance now at 2-8 after getting the win last week to slowly climb their way back into things here in the East Division playoff race. So very crucial game here. And then for the Alouettes, it's their chance to really shut the door on Ottawa being able to play a factor in this race the rest of the season. If they can win this game, they put Ottawa at 2-9. They get to 5 wins themselves, and I think that gives them a really good chance of making the playoffs going forward if they're able to win this game. So I think it's going to be very interesting. We have a really good quarterback matchup, I think, in this one with Nick Arbuckle and Trevor Harris. I think very similar type guys in terms of being mostly pocket passers, but not necessarily being the highest upside players. I think Nick Arbuckle, he played relatively well in the first half last week, but fell back down to earth in the second half, and it looked like they were barely holding on in this game. Interested in how he plays in his second game as a starter for the Red Blacks. And then for Trevor Harris, it's all about consistency. Can he play the last time like he did the last time he played the Red Blacks earlier this season, where I think it was like 350 yards and like 80% completion. So, I'm really interested to see what quarterback shows up in this one. And ultimately, I am going to go with the Alouettes to win this game by a score of 21-16. I think that in recent memory, Montreal has been very comfortable in this series, including last year when they took 3 of 4. They won the first game so far this year. So I like Montreal to ultimately win this game at home by a score of 21-16, and I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think there's a lot of potential for an Ottawa upset here, but I think ultimately Montreal finds a way to get it done and separate themselves from Ottawa in the standings. And then over on the community tab, the fans are taking the Alouettes 83% of the time, so that's the channel's pick for this game this week. Now moving out west to Saskatchewan, where the Saskatchewan Roughriders are hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are favored by 3.5 points here. And obviously, I think this is a really crucial game. I think you could throw out the records a lot of time on Labor Day because you look at the history of this matchup. Yes, Winnipeg has won the last 2 years, but at the same time, before that, I think Saskatchewan has won 10 in a row, and traditionally, Saskatchewan has done very well in these games. And it should be very interesting to see who plays well in this one. I'm looking to see if that Saskatchewan offensive line can hold up against that Winnipeg defensive line. I think if they can give them a puncher's chance to get some throws off down the field, I think Saskatchewan has a chance to pull off an upset here at home. And at the end of the day, I think that Saskatchewan actually has a pretty good chance of pulling this off. Winnipeg has been in a lot of close games this year, barely got by the skin of their teeth. But at the end of the day, I think Saskatchewan finds a way to upset Winnipeg here because I think, like I said, Winnipeg has gotten lucky in a lot of games this year. I think it's about time that they lose one of these close ones, and I think they're going to lose this game 28-27 to the Roughriders here in the Labor Day Classic. And then over on the community tab, the fans are taking Winnipeg 65% of the time, so that's the channel's pick for this game this week. Now moving on to Monday's doubleheader, starting with the first game between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts from Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And it's starting to get do or die for the Hamilton Tiger Cats point of view in this game because I think one more loss and it's starting to get into you have to win basically every game the rest of the way. They still have a good chance if they can win this game, plus beat Montreal a couple of weeks from now, I think they would be in decent shape to try to make a run the rest of the season. But they have to win this game. And traditionally, they've done very well at Tim Hortons Field. I believe they've never lost at Tim Hortons Field in the Labor Day Classic since it opened in 2014. So it should be very interesting to see if they can keep that streak going. I think that Dane Evans in particular, everybody's going to have their eye on him after the dreadful game he had last week. They really had no choice but to start him this week because of Matthew Schultz injury, so it should be very interesting to see if he can have a big bounce back game here. He played well last year in the Labor Day Classic, so very interested to see how this team plays the rest of the way here, and if that Toronto defense can continue playing at such a high level like it did last week. Really just figured Evans out throughout that game, so very interested to see what happens in this matchup. Obviously, the fourth time in 5 weeks that we're seeing this matchup, and this is the final time that they're playing in the regular season this year. So very interested to see how this game plays out. But ultimately, I just can't trust Hamilton. I've said this a couple of weeks, but I just cannot trust Hamilton with what they've shown so far this season. So many injuries. I just don't trust their offense at all. Even though they never really lost on Labor Day at Tim Hortons Field, I think Toronto's due to get a victory here, and I'm going to take them to win 30-25 in a close game that I think Hamilton could win. They could feed off the home crowd, but at the end of the day, I think Toronto is the more healthy, more consistent team right now, even though they have their own issues as well. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to come out on top with the victory. And then over on the community tab, the fans are taking Toronto 65% of the time, so that's the channel's pick for this game this week. Now moving on to the last game of the week between the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Elks from McMahon Stadium in Calgary, with the Calgary Stampeders favored by 12.5 points here. And I think the main storyline I'm looking for in this game, can Calgary finally have one of those explosive offensive games that we've yet to see from them so far this season? Jake Maier looked really good in his first start of the season last week. Can he continue that positive momentum that he built last week against Winnipeg? Very interested to see what happens in this game with this Calgary offense, especially Reggie Begelton and Kamar Jordan, who have had very subpar seasons compared to their previous standards in the CFL. And then from the Edmonton point of view, I'm interested to see how they react after another week of turnover. They made a couple of trades, the one with Thomas Costigan and Nafis Lyon going to Montreal. So a couple of key starters missing from that defense. How does this team react? And I think they're also missing Kenny Lawler, I think, who just got placed on the 6-game injured list this week. So could be really detrimental to that Edmonton offense going forward, because Lawler really was their number one clear target on that offense. And I just don't know if they have the quarterback play at the end of the day to keep up with Calgary in this one if Jake Maier plays like he did last week. And at the end of the day, that 12.5 point spread would scare me if I was betting on this game. But at the end of the day, I do think Calgary is going to win this game. I have them winning by a score of 35-24 in this one. Getting that 2-score lead, but maybe a hit or miss whether or not they're going to cover the spread in this one, because that is just a gigantic number. And then on the community tab for this one, the fans are taking Calgary 88% of the time, so that's the channel's pick for this game this week. But at the end of the day, those are just my predictions for Week 13 of the 2022 CFL season. Be sure to let me know yours down in the comment section. And with that said, hope everyone has a great day, has a great weekend, and enjoys the games this weekend. Peace.